topic. As those who follow us, which is half of our audience right now, and will already know this, and those who are new, which is the other half of our audience right now, won't know that one of our main areas of interest and specialization is Pakistan, and terrorism groups in Pakistan, and the internal politics of the country. And some significant things have been going on there. As you probably have heard if you follow this stuff, the Swat Valley was recently handed over to the Taliban as an act of...
a group that, is similar to the Taliban.
Yeah, it should be pointed out
believes a lot of the same things, but is not, in fact, run by the same people that ran Afghanistan.
Yeah, it should be pointed out that now things like... I'm sorry. I'm moving around too much. I needed to move my leg and my table was too close. Phrases like Taliban and Al-Qaeda and jihadist and mujahideen, and sometimes they refer to very specific people, and other times they're very general terms. And this is one of those times when it's a more general term. But these are people who essentially have the same political and authoritarian goals as the traditional Taliban that we all remember from Afghanistan. And in some cases, maybe some of the same people, but essentially, they just want really harsh Sharia law. And
to the extent that they want to ban things their ancestors have done for thousands of years.
Yeah. Like music.
Yeah, these guys are not traditionalists.
Anyway, so Pakistan, the Pakistani government, which is incredibly weak right now, they were incredibly weak anyway because of the rift between the military government and the civilian government. And after the Mumbai attacks, that just got worse because it inflamed Kashmir. But they were just like torn at every side. So I think that they thought if they could get the Taliban off their back in Swat, they would have a moment to think about all the other shit that's going on. But instead, what happened was the Taliban took over Swat and then went right on to Buner, which is this next province over.
Next area over.
And is 65 miles from Islamabad, and which is
actually farther than it sounds because the roads are not real good.
There's a mountain range in between, but it is the capital of the country. So... it's really disconcerting to think that they would be able to move in there, and I think the problem here is that the Pakistani government just wasn't expecting it. But now the Pakistani government has moved in and has pushed them back.
There was actually a while ago. There was oddly, the New York Times printed something good, describing the revolt in Swat and surrounding areas, and that they suggested that the success of the Taliban in these areas is actually due to very good old fashioned sort of reasons, it's basically kill my landlord.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's always why rural insurgents win. That the government is supporting assholes.
Well, exactly. And the thing is, call me a Marxist if you want, but the fact is, if there's a group of people that have been sitting on a piece of land and farming it for however long, I think they have more right to it than the government in order to sell it for the mineral rights to what's underneath or to make way for a pipeline.
The suggestion in SWAT actually was that the problem is just there's this, old entrenched class of large rural landowners that, treat their tenants badly, and
this is a story we've heard before, but
the Cuban Revolution,
the tenants want to just live their lives, and the people who own the land want to do whatever the fuck they want to do with it. Which, like I said, whether it's mineral rights, selling it for...
Well, I think in this case the main thing they want to do is overcharge the tenants. It's very old-fashioned and, feudalistic.
Well, in SWAT in particular, it's a very beautiful area, and there was a lot of tourism, and there's a lot of nice stuff there, more nice stuff than there are in the surrounding areas. But the point is, where this is important is a government that was already very tenuous and having a hard time has now made a serious miscalculation that has backfired, and now they have yet another big problem to deal with, and it makes them look really bad. On top of which, Sharia law, although it sounds horrible to us, there's a little bit of nostalgia for Sharia law in this part of the world. So it's not exactly like trying to convince them not to go.
And often the secular judges are not very good,
Well, there aren't that many secular
Yeah.
judges is the thing, like it's not the system that's relied upon, is because people are more comfortable in Sharia.
Yeah.
Um, but the problem is there's a real division in Pakistan between the tribal areas and Islamabad and Karachi. There's the part of the
Yeah.
country that's extremely urban and extremely modern and extremely western, for lack of a better word, where everybody has, high-speed internet access and cell phones, and then another part of the country where, women aren't allowed to leave their house because that part is controlled by, warlords and or the Taliban.
In some cases, these two parts of the country are right outside each other's windows in
Yeah,
some of the big cities.
it's a mind-boggling situation over there, and let's not forget that they have nuclear weapons. And every time I talk to somebody from Pakistan about the nuclear weapons, they always say, "Don't worry, the military is solid." But I just quite frankly don't fucking believe that. I think they have their hands full, and there are too many connections between the military, ISI, and the militant jihadist groups. There are just too many direct links. I don't believe that there's no way that Lashkar-e-Taiba can't possibly get its hand on some nukes. I mean, considering how corrupt AQ Khan was, I just don't buy it. I mean, if I were Pakistani, I might want to believe it, but it just doesn't seem plausible to me.
Yeah, of course, maybe they say that we don't need to be worried because, don't worry, the generals have higher bidders, Iran has been taking in some money from their oil reserves, and they're, I mean, this year's budget might not be good because
Right.
the price is down, Iran has just developed an intercontinental launch capability. I mean, they're going to want to put something on top of those things, right?
They can get them from North Korea.
Yeah, just
Um,
like the Ethiopians do.
anyway, oh my god. But of course, the real reason that Pakistan is such an issue is because of its proximity to Afghanistan, where we're moving more troops. Now, here's a place where I completely am
And
not in favor of what
and
Obama
and,
is
and by
doing.
the way, the other issue with with the movement into Buner is that got them closer to the supply lines leading into Afghanistan,
That's been one of the biggest issues
which
for
got bombed again
Afghanistan.
recently.
Has been because there's only a couple of routes to get trucks big enough in to get fuel and food supplies in for the forces, the NATO forces and the U.S. forces that are in there. If they would just make nice with Iran, they wouldn't have this
Yeah.
problem. But they won't make nice with Iran. We were talking in the beginning part of the show when nobody was here. We were just talking to ourselves. Maybe it was when the first person got here, but the fact is, even though it seems like it's a good possibility that Obama and Ahmadinejad may be able to talk to each other, we currently have a U.S. Iranian journalist who's just been sentenced to 8 years in prison in Iran, and that's definitely going to put a damper on the situation. And Israel
And it's not
is
like we can tell them not to torture her either.
that exactly. That's the reason it's relevant, is because with all the fucking torture shit that is going on with us, we have no moral high ground in which to say don't torture her. But it's one more thing that's going to cause a problem, and on top of that, Israel's moving in the direction of the right wing, and they're getting crazier every goddamn day, and they're talking about attacking Iran. I mean, it's not credible.
Which I think potentially could, I mean, it would be such a disaster for Israel to
That's
do
what I'm saying.
that.
I don't think it's credible because anybody who would think it through would say it's horrible to even consider it, but they keep talking about it enough that it scares me to think
I,
again somebody could get their finger on the button.
I don't even get what Israel would do. I mean, they're not adjacent to Iran, like there's no way they could occupy it.
Besides which, after they attack Iran, every single other Arab country is going to come after them.
Maybe
And
they figure that they're already that hated, but that's not true.
And on top of that, Russia is backing Iran, and Russia's putting missile defense systems in Syria. So Russia would put people in Syria as soon as they could to defend the Arab world. Because if basically if Israel and the U.S. isn't going to do business with these guys, they're going to do business with those guys. That's just the way we're getting really close to 10 minutes though, so we've got to end this segment. Be right